New York, Eastern United States, October 2025. The weather in New York City before the storm arrives indicates a terrible storm is coming. Before the sun rises, New York City is in a heavy calm, the air humid from the humidity and salt of the sea. Across the harbor, the Pacific Ocean is churning, and waves are rushing towards the shores with great heights.
Okay, we got a little problem here. All right, in here. I'm trying to pick you up, okay?
According to authorities, continuous and wet rains caused a severe storm. Strong winds bent trees, shook coastal windows, affected streets and people, and water surged over the sea walls and high waves to areas that had not previously experienced the ocean's intrusion. According to reports, basements and drainage systems filled rapidly within seconds. Cars were stuck in the streets and many roads were blocked. The sound of rescue vehicle sirens could be heard for several kilometers, and emergency services announced the evacuation of high-risk areas. By the early hours of the morning in New Jersey, parts of the beach, sidewalks, and piers that people once used were completely submerged. The sea had come forward and reclaimed the land. The roaring waves hit houses and broke walls and windows. The floodwaters were so strong that they had broken the boundary between land and sea. Parts of the sea had been swallowed up and submerged, merging the East River with the streets of Manhattan. City officials urged residents to help authorities, declaring that an unprecedented storm was passing and that people should stay in their homes. Experts warned of rising water levels and the possibility of widespread flooding in coastal and central areas. A new storm was forming in the Atlantic Ocean south of New York, in the Carolinas and North Carolina. It started as a weak system, but gradually gained strength as it picked up moisture and warmth from the sea, and as it moved north, a variety of factors intensified. By Sunday night, the massive storm had covered nearly the entire east coast of the United States. According to weather forecasters, the combination of warm, humid tropical air and cold Arctic air is bringing unprecedented rainfall and storm surge. Wind gusts have reached 60 miles per hour and sea levels have risen 8 feet, 2.5 meters, above normal. When the storm hit New York and New Jersey, everything was in disarray. Power, transportation, and city life were disrupted. Within hours, drains and infrastructure were clogged and roads were flooded. By midnight, Katie Hochul declared a state of emergency and officials were urging residents to move away from coastal and low-lying areas. But it was too late. Streets and roads were completely submerged. The storm is still moving forward, and water levels are expected to rise in the coming hours. By early morning, the eastern seaboard of the United States, from New York to New Jersey, was completely under the weight of the storm's strongest force. Northeast winds had crossed the horizon and rattled windows from Long Island to Newark. Wind gusts reached 60 miles, 95 kilometers per hour, battering windows and buildings horizontally. Streets were turned into muddy, dark streams from the heavy rain and flooding. The sea had surged over the coast and into urban areas. In Atlantic City, sea levels rose more than 8 feet, 2.5 meters, above normal, the highest level recorded in a storm since Superstorm Sandy in 2012. In Philadelphia and northern New Jersey, roads and streets were closed due to flooding rivers. Route 40, the main route in and out of Atlantic City, was impassable. People were unable to get to work because the highway was impassable and train service was suspended. Hundreds of flights were canceled and terminals were packed with passengers at Liberty, Newark, and John F. Kennedy airports. In some areas, floodwaters were at levels not seen in more than a decade, as forecasters had warned. The system is expected to last through Tuesday and will have a lasting, changing effect on the coastal geography. The nor'easter moved north on Tuesday, though damage and destruction stretched across the East Coast, from the Outer Banks of North Carolina to the Massachusetts coast. Roads that had been heavily trafficked were now covered in mud and sand. Homes were destroyed, and their windows were shattered by high winds. Power lines were undetectable in Atlantic City's waterfront neighborhoods. In New Jersey, emergency crews worked through the night with searchlights. City streets were turned into rivers, forcing commuters to abandon their cars and head for higher ground. By noon, more than 500,000 homes were without power. In New York City, the subway system struggled to reopen after dozens of stations were flooded. This story warns that life is fragile in the face of the forces of nature, and that rebuilding is only possible before the next wave arrives. Viewers are encouraged to like the video and share it with those who need to see it. Also, subscribe to receive real stories of resilience, survival, and the untamed power of nature, because awareness is the first step to change, and the next storm is always closer than we think. Viewers are invited to share their thoughts on these questions. Are disasters like floods, fires, and future hurricanes unstoppable forces of nature or signs of a planet out of balance? Are we truly prepared for the disasters ahead, or are we still hoping they never happen? Your voice matters, because collective collaboration can ensure that the story of the next storm is not one of loss, but one of resilience.